So there's different ways that you can harness ChatGPT. Now, one of the things that we won't be looking at is if you're a coder, because I'm not a coder, I'm not a developer, but we can get people on to say, look, this is how they're using it to 100x the coding outputs. As I was saying at the beginning, I haven't looked into the image that you can generate. I know that James has been looking at that and Jeff Hancock's been looking at that. So maybe we can organize a follow-up workshop where we're looking specifically at generative AI for imagery. But what we want to look at today is really how can we use ChatGPT to enhance your productivity? And that's what I'm going to be focusing on. I do have a bunch of slides for you, but I don't want to give you death by PowerPoint or Canva as it is. So what would be great is I'll give you a couple more minutes. Good morning, everyone. Because a few people are coming in pretty quickly. So missing the introduction isn't too much, but I would love to have a look at the poll and see where we're at now. So 30 or 36 people have answered the poll. So anyone who's joining, we'll give you a few more moments to do that. And then I'm going to move on to the next poll, just to have an understanding of who we've got and where everyone is at. So at the moment, we have 28% of you are interested in marketing, 44% on productivity, third of you entrepreneurs, 9% HR, 15% team leaders. We have a couple of developers, so that would be great for the next workshop. Third of you are founders, 25% general and other. So I'm going to end that poll and I'm just going to ask there we are, share the results with you. And I'll have a quick peek of that. Whilst we let some other people join, I'll also then move on to the next poll. And then I want to know how much have you been playing around with ChatGPT before this workshop. So I know some people just can't get in. If you haven't been able to sign up because it's been too busy and you're on a wait list, can you just ping it in the chat so we have an idea of how many people are trying to get in, but it's at capacity? No one so far. Oh, you're not
I may have two accounts. I'm not going to say anything.
Do both of them work on the same time on the wait list?
I reckon the new thing will be, once everyone signed up with the actual platform, it will go back to the old idea of us using our brains to write our words ourselves. It'll be quite novel.
Oh, okay. I'm not going back. I can tell you that much.
I'm not going back.
I don't know. I have produced a guide that takes you through what's happening in this workshop or this hour session and a bit more. So if anyone would like that afterwards, then please feel free to let me know. So here's the thing. ChatGPT is now available. It became available to us mere mortals in November. They had 1 million active users within the first week. And now I understand that they have 96 million monthly active users. And people want to know, is it hype and is it going to replace them? So my very quick answer is no, it's not hype. But different people are getting different results depending on what they're putting in and what they're putting out. So the idea is by the time that this hour is finished, you won't be the person who's putting in a result and getting disappointing outputs. You'll know how to be able to put in the right prompts to be able to get amazing outputs. Will it replace you? ChatGPT at the moment is phenomenal. I think there's a lot of hours of work that we don't need to do ourselves that it will replace. But for you and your creativity, your experience, your knowledge, the direction that you want to go to, it's there to assist you, not to replace you 100%. So if you're where you can bring value, that's still going to happen. And it's actually able to help you to raise your game. So the two questions I asked, is it hype and is it going to replace us? No, but ChatGPT 4 is coming out and I've got a slide that shows how much more powerful it is as an image, because I can't understand the numbers, they're just too big. And I can't imagine what that's going to be like then. So my point being, as ChatGPT's come out, it came out in November, it allows people who didn't have access to it before to play around, to have a look at it. I am no coder, right? Tools like Zapier, if this, then that, RPAs, they're all there supposedly to be able to help us to become more productive. I haven't been able to harness any of them. because I just haven't had, they've been too clunky for me to be able to use. I know obviously millions of people have been able to do that, but with ChatGPT, it's just you use the language that you use, right? English, no coding required. So I'm going to show you what I've learned from that, and everyone should be able to use it. So in terms of usability, it's really incredibly easy. So for those of you who don't have an account, it's pretty easy to sign up. I dropped the link in the chat. I'm going to drop it in one more time because I know that, or if someone, you could re-drop it in, that would be useful. One more time, because I know that when you come into a Zoom call, the chat history isn't shown for everyone. And so how can we use ChatGPT? So that question is pretty much limitless, but obviously I asked ChatGPT, how is it changing different industries? And so it looks at things like healthcare. ChatGPT is being used to create virtual assistants that can provide medical information, assist with diagnosis, and even help with telemedicine consultations. Education, they can become assistants for virtual tutors. In retail, it can become customer assistance, manufacturing, finance, legal, transportation, real estate, you name it. If there's an industry, then this can be used to disrupt it. And in every example it gives you, it can be an assistant for, and then specific purposes. I think that's really quite interesting, and we need to keep that in mind when we're looking at the examples of prompts and the ways that you can use it. It's really going to become your personal assistant, your team's personal assistant, your customer's personal assistant. So what can we use it for?
Just give me a second. I need to, sorry.
No worries. What can we leverage for to be able to make it useful as an assistant? And it's pretty damn impressive assistant as well. I also would like to introduce you to James whilst we're here. James, do you want to take your mic off and say hello?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Thank you for, thanks for having me on here, Bridget. I really appreciate it. My name is James Stothard. I'm the marketing lead over at Bitpanda Custody, or a crypto custodian. I've been playing around with ChatGPT, but also with Stable Diffusion for AI art and things like that. So very exciting space, a bit scary, but we'll talk more about that later.
Absolutely. And James shared a prompt about creative writing on LinkedIn a few weeks ago. And it was because of that I invited him to come on and share what else he's been playing with. So you're not just going to hear from me. He's also going to walk you through. And I love what he said is how to use ChatGPT without feeling like a cheat. So I absolutely adore that. I do not feel like a cheat. I've been using it too much. I just love it. So the other thing is okay, those are all of the different industries, but really this is a Web3 crowd. And I'm very interested, of course, in making sure that we get mass adoption and we get to where we want to with Web3. All of the panels I've been on, all of the discussions that I've had with people about actually how can we get to a larger scale adoption for Web3. And it's been two main points. One is education and the other one is user experience. Now, of course, that doesn't include the scandals and all of the bad PR that we had last year from a handful of people, but I'm ignoring that because I'm talking to you guys, you're the builders, we're here in the crypto winter and we're about building this technology in the right way, for the right reasons, in the smartest way. So one of the things I asked ChatGPT 6 ways that it could help for disrupting Web3. And it did put in their user experience and communication. So I think it'd be very interesting to see, like half the time when I'm using Web3 products, if I had someone to hold my hand and show me what to do, that would be brilliant. I wouldn't have to jump off half the time and fail to execute. And I really think that there's this new AI technology. That's something that we can pretty quickly start to build and apply into the products and services that we offer as an industry. So that I'm very excited about, and I'd love to be able to work with many of you to be able to accelerate that as much as possible. So I'm going to share some slides with you now. Share. Can you see this? Yes.
Yep.
Awesome. I'm going to put it into full screen mode for you. She says maybe, maybe not. Okay, so this is what we've got currently. ChatGPT 3 is mind-blowing, but in terms of the power of it, it's here. I don't know when ChatGPT 4 is coming out exactly, but I'm told that it's on the near horizon. So we're going to move from this brain power and knowledge to this. I don't really know. I don't know what that is tangibly. I just know it's exponential. And so the faster that we can figure out how to leverage this, the better it's going to be before we get to that. Does that make sense to you all? Right. So how do we embrace ChatGPT? How do we use it to be effective? How can I stop you guys having to learn on your own and fast track what you want to be able to get to? ChatGPT is very at capacity, as we said. So there are a couple of things when the platform is busy that you can notice when it's busy, right? So if you're not getting the outputs that you want, ChatGPT decreases significantly to very, very boring, almost unusable outputs when it's too busy. So it looks like it's working, but it's giving you very limited results. If you're first on it and those are the results you're getting, try and play another time. Just assume that the platform is too busy. There is also a pro version that has been released. I will be able to share with you the link for the pro version when James is talking, because I don't have it to hand. That would have been useful, I know. But I have signed up to the pro version. I have absolutely no idea when we're going to get it. Currently, I believe it's $47 a month, and the idea is that you don't have any of the downtime. So those are the things that we can do. But until such time as we get there, what is it that we can do? So basically, what you're looking at doing, assuming that ChatGPT, you've got access to it and it's working within the right capacity, it's all about asking a prompt. What we put into ChatGPT, that's what it's called. It's called a prompt. And the prompt is nothing more than a question or a sentence that you can give to ChatGPT so it understands what it is that you want to either write or help it with. So let's have a look at some basic prompts. And what I want to know is, how many of you do have your ChatGPT open right now? You see you're sharing. I can't go back onto Zoom. I'm going to stop sharing for a moment so I can see you all. How many of you are on ChatGPT right now? Awesome. Okay, so let's try some prompts just whilst you're there. Some basic prompts we've got. I'm going to put them in the chat. Here's some basic prompts that you can just play around with. Okay, and if we have a look at these prompts, then you'll see that they cover content creation. Give me 5 ideas for a LinkedIn post. You can ask it how to cook a dish, put it for cooking. You can help it to draft you an employment contract. So I know that there was a few people who've been speaking to lawyers, and they've been asking them about their area of expertise. And then they put that question that they posed to the lawyer into ChatGPT with the lawyer next to them. And the lawyer became very uncomfortable because of how accurate the information was that it was given. So this is brilliant for the founders of us who are on the call, or anyone who needs to be able to pull up legal contracts, is that it can help you to be able to get at least that template together. Now, I wouldn't rely on anything 100%, but if you can draft a lot of the work before you need to actually go to a lawyer, then this is something that is a tool that you can leverage. We've also got suggested ways to treat my cold. Some of the information out there when it comes to passing medical exams, ChatGPT already has the knowledge apparently to be able to do that in terms of the theory of it all. So incredibly powerful in terms of how you can use it. And then I had someone who was, I was talking to them. I said, look, where are you stuck with let me show you how you can use ChatGPT. And they're doing their, and I said, fine, let's go ahead and ask it some questions. And it literally gave them the processes, the steps and the outlines to be able to get on with their coursework, to go on to the next stage of where they were at. So whatever you're thinking of is ways that it can be used. Okay, so I asked Chat, you can see the notes, it's not a problem. It's easier for me to manage this way. So I said to ChatGPT, okay, so it's all about asking you prompts. What do you think is a really good example of a prompt? And it came up with, imagine you are the CEO of a successful technology company. You've been invited to give a keynote speech at a major industry conference. Your topic is the future of AI in business. Write the speech that you would give, focusing on the potential of AI to revolutionize various industries and the steps that businesses can take to stay ahead of the curve. So that's great. Now, anytime anyone's writing a talk or a presentation, you can go to ChatGPT and see what it gives you. And this is, I think, where you'll find where its limitations are, when it needs your expertise, and where it could be really powerful. So I want you guys who've tried a prompt to tell us what you've put in and what it's giving you back. Heather, did you put something in that you got a response back that you're happy to share?
Yes, I put the same prompt in twice and it did give me different results for each one, but I put something in related to an issue I'm having. So I asked it, which companies will insure freelance smart contract developers? And I did get an answer. And then I was trying to figure out how to save it. So I clicked save and submit, and then I did it again, and I came up with a different answer. So I did get a different set of answers, and I didn't save the first set. So
okay, well, that's great. So it literally is, how do you save it? You copy and paste it. Okay, so what you want to be able to do, and we'll mention that in a moment, you want to be able to have a file open where you copy and paste and save your outputs. Also, feel free to copy and save the prompt that you put to get that output. If you go back up to where you are, it should say 2 of 2, and it should have an arrow left. So it will show you both versions.
oh, okay, yeah, I see that. Ah, yes, now I've got, so now that's good. I've got a few companies to look at that I could maybe get insurance from. So that's pretty cool.
Awesome. So in terms of what's the context of that prompt, what can we learn from it in terms of the framework? Because that's what we want to have a look at. We want to be able to have a look at as how do I structure prompts to be able to get the best from it. I said, okay, ChatGPT, if I want to buy a new car, I know nothing about cars. I don't have a car that I'm aiming for, just something practical. ChatGPT, help me buy a new car. So if anyone who's got on ChatGPT and they'd like to ask that question, you can have a look and see what the results are. ChatGPT, help me buy my next car. And if it's anything like the results that I got, it's going to ask you, it's going to give you a whole bunch of directions. And those directions are where you can do your research, what you have to consider, and all these wonderful things to be able to decide how to do that. But that looks like hours of work to me. Then can anyone see that prompt? Patricia, have you put it in, or are you on your own prompts?
I did a similar prompt, but I was a bit more specific. I put in that is compliant with London ULEZ zone, and it's still going.
Yeah, still going, exactly.
Yeah. You want to consider the vehicle's emissions rating, 75 grams per kilogram, which I had no idea about. Euro 6 emission standard. Didn't give me a model of the car though.
No, okay, cool. So then I changed that prompt because that was like, okay, that's useful, but it's not really gonna serve me my needs because I'm just not going to go down that road of doing all that research. So change the prompt, Jeff, to ask me the questions to determine the best car for me, and you can put in your ULEZ London issues, and then let me know your top 3 choices based on my answers. And then feel free to let us know the questions that it asks.
Sorry, say that again. So do the same prompt, and then what? So
the prompt is now, ask me the questions to determine the best car for me.
Oh.
And then let me know your top 3 answers. I'm going to put it in chat so you've got it there, and you can add in the ULEZ requirements.
So you don't have to phrase it as a question. Is that what I'm understanding correctly? You can tell it to do something.
100%. You can ask it to act like something. You can, yeah. I've
done 2, 1 in each window. Actually done it's doing it, ask me the question I need to know based on your answers now. But I also did the same question again, but I put for sale under 5K, and it recommended Smart Twio, the Volkswagen Up, Mitsubishi Miev, Nissan Leaf, Renault Zeo, BMW i3, Fiat 500e.
Cool. And the questions that it's asked you are much easier. So the first ones are doing all this research. The second questions are things like, How often will you use it? For what purpose? How many people will be sat in the car? Are you concerned about fuel consumption? What's your price? Stuff that you'll just be able to. So
here are some questions you should consider when looking to buy a used car that is compliant with London's ultra low emission zone.
So you can do.
It's a bit slow, but it's trying.
My point being is you can ask it to help you, and it will give you all
Yeah.
the things that you can do to research it, or you can
it's doing
ask
it
it
now.
to
Very
do the
cool.
heavy lifting for you.
Yeah, and then you could basically take those out and separate them out into separate chunks.
But if you say, I just want to know the top 3,
Yeah.
you answer 6 basic questions and you get 3
Yeah.
choices of car.
Yeah. So what is the emissions rating? When was the car registered? And what is the make and model? Yeah.
Yeah.
I've
So
just put in the chat as well.
thank you, Patricia.
Yeah. So yeah, no, the construction of the prompts and the reprompting is really interesting. It's something that my creativity bit hasn't really gotten a hold of yet, but it's the reprompting process that's just as important, isn't it, before you go and write something?
100%. So that's one example. I've got some others that I want to be able to share.
Because it's using the existing context in that thread to generate a new prompt, right?
Yeah. So for those of you who haven't had a chance to use ChatGPT, it remembers the history of your questions. So you can just keep building on it. So if you say, I am interested in X, Y, and Z, and then it gives you an answer and you're like, oh, that's great. Can you talk to me more about this point? And dive into, so for example, Heather, you were asking about the various companies. If it answers something that you want to have more detail on, just say, give me more detail on that point, and it'll go back into it. So it keeps building on the conversation that you're having within there, and it remembers the context.
And is that only within that session? So if you log out and come back in, would it remember that or no?
So it does have, if you have a look on the left-hand side, you should be able to see the history of the conversations that you've had. However, that's an awful lot of storage. It doesn't always hold them, and they wouldn't rely on it 100%. So one of the things that I would definitely recommend you do is you open up either your Google Docs or your Word, whatever software that you use, and start to organize your searches with folders and files, and that you can put these and store these outputs into. It'll become particularly more important for you as we go through a little bit more, because there are things that you can do that you'll want to refer back to. But in the session with ChatGPT, it will remember. Leanne, I'll see you later. In the session of GPT, it will remember, but when you're coming back to it 3 weeks later, you want it to remember what you got to. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay, so what I want you to understand first is that, particularly for women, the mental load that we have in our lives tends to be quite big outside of work, let alone within work. When you've got people like Steve Jobs, who decided to wear the same outfit every day, so that was one less piece of information he had to worry about, then we can see that being productive and not having to carry that load would be really useful. So please do remember that you can use ChatGPT as your personal assistant. Imagine now you have an executive personal assistant. So do allow it to assist you with all areas of life. Don't think that it's just here to be able to help you with work. That was the first thing that I really wanted to come home. Then in terms of the next thing that you can do with your outputs. So as Jeff has said, it's like the framing of the question, the reframing of the question, and the tweaking of the question is going to be, or the prompt, should I say, to use the right language, is going to be very crucial to the output that you get. Now, you might find that you like the quality of the content that you've got, but it's not in your voice. It's not in the right tone of voice for either you or the company or the purpose of what it is. So then what can you do? So you can say, that's great. Please rewrite it with this tone of voice. Okay. So the types of tones of voices that other people have chosen to put in play, I'll just give you some ideas. I'm going to share my screen again with you so that you can see them.
Anyone has a chance to look up at it, go and have a look at the Ryan Reynolds ad for his
Oh, it's
company.
brilliant.
Yeah, he actually said, right, create an ad write it for this company, add these 4 things and write it in a Ryan Reynolds tonality of voice. And
Yes.
it was spot on.
It was amazing.
Yeah. And the ad was him reading an A4 bit of paper, which
It was
is,
the cheapest ad to produce ever.
yeah, yeah.
Completely went viral for
Yeah.
those of you who haven't seen it. Yeah, so can you see the screen? It says, here are some tips that people have used to add into their prompts. Okay, so you've got the content that you want, but it's not in the right tone of voice. So you can ask it to impersonate. I actually Googled to say, who are the best communicators? And Oprah Winfrey and Bill Clinton came up. So I'm sorry, it's very American based, but that's why I've chosen those ones. So you can put people's names in. So if you have people who are well enough known. I also did one with Brené Brown. It was quite interesting. So you can ask it to impersonate either a person, or you can give it names. You can ask it to write things in an aesthetically pleasing manner, which makes it much less dry and boring, because the without asking input from ChatGPT, I have found to be quite dull. It's factually correct, but it's not really inspiring to read. You can ask it to write in an amusing monologue fashion, or you can say, look, the tone of voice is helpful, creative, clever and friendly, so please rewrite in that manner.
Is that similar to some of the corrections that you can do in Grammarly for like an informative audience, an educated audience, or whatever?
I would imagine so. That would require me having more knowledge of Grammarly.
It's just to do it's basically just for, if it's kind of like a thesaurus for using dull words and
yes,
jazzing it up a little bit. Yeah.
Yes, but right, yeah, exactly. So Jane, you had your hand up.
Yeah, it was just to say that I've done some new things this morning. One of them once was taking a text which was written in very sophisticated language, but I needed to use it in very, very basic English. And I asked it to reiterate in very simple. It was absolutely brilliant, whereas that's something normally I would have to go through and
Yes.
alter words, alter its structures, etc. So that was marvelous. Another thing that I did, which was quite impressive, I got a very difficult email that I needed to send to a cousin, and it was very tricky because I didn't want to be confrontational. I had no idea how to approach it. And it came up with something initially which was a bit too aggressive. So I said, could you lighten this up? A bit too conflictual. It came up with something, I couldn't use it exactly, but it gave me a basis, which was brilliant. And I would never have found in a million years how to approach it in that particular way. So that was great. The third thing was, I think you said it, but I didn't quite get it. I'm having difficulty in a string of communication, like there, for example, with this email to my cousin. You got various versions, like saying, no, not exactly. And when I try to copy the final one, I get the whole string. And I don't know how to separate to get a particular proposal in order to copy it out.
So what I found that I like, if I'm honest with you, is you start at the top of wherever it is you want to copy, and it drops to the bottom like that, right? So you get everything without having to scroll down however long that you've been. So I really like that functionality, but you don't always want everything. So go to the response, the output that you liked, and click from the bottom of that paragraph up to the top, and then it'll just highlight that. Go up, not down.
I put an example in while we were talking so that I could try it out when you say
it. Speaks every language, Heather, pretty much. ChatGPT is great for translation. It speaks multiple languages. It is most trained on English, so it is best in that. But you can use it for translation for other conversations, which again, you can have as an assistant.
Yeah, I'm not even asking a translation. I just asked it a question in Dutch, like, where can I get a gluten-free pizza in Amsterdam in Dutch? And it is answering me.
Yeah. It even speaks Afrikaans, which is not widely.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So I shared with you what you can do in terms of the tone of voice, but also that's you thinking again. Like so some companies know their tone of voice, that's fine. They've already gone through that exercise and they put it in. But what happens if you don't know your tone of voice? What happens if now that you're using this for the first time, you want to make sure that it understands who you are? If you're anything like me, then I can't tell it what my tone of voice is. So we get it to do the heavy lifting for us, right? So I just use this prompt. Can you ask me a question one at a time, waiting for me to answer each question until you know enough to tell me in the tone of voice I should write? Please keep your response to 20 words. So if you sometimes ask it, can you ask me questions? It'll give you, like we had that experience, you shared it with the car. It gives you all the questions straight away. Okay, there's two issues with that. Is one, if you start typing, sometimes the text in the prompt that you've got on the screen will hide some of the actual answers. And so then it becomes clunky, then you have to copy and paste over there, see what those answers are, bring it back. You also have to think, oh, answer 1 is this, answer 2 is that. But if it just asks you one question at a time, it's so much easier for you to use. I didn't tell it how many questions to ask me, because I don't know what it needs to know until it can tell me. So if you want, you can spit in, ask me 8 questions for something. It could be, you know, if you're putting it together as an assistant for somebody else to use, you might just want to be able to say, but most of the time, you don't need to tell it how many questions, you just tell it what it needs to be able to output and let it get on with it the rest of the time. Now, then it gave me, and I gave the answer of it gave me my 20 words for my tone of voice. I now put that in a swipe file. And every time I ask it to produce content for me, I remind it to write in my tone of voice.
Oh, so what the tone of voice and output, you put that into like a master template, basically.
Yeah. So
this tone of voice, right? Blah.
Yeah. Yeah. So my tone of voice, I want to be consistent across the years that I'm using it, and so I have that in a swipe file, and then I can just copy paste it when I'm asking it to produce anything. So there could be the whole prompt, and then afterwards it's like in this tone of voice.
Sorry, I didn't know what a swipe file was, but thank you.
Yeah, so a swipe file is basically copy and paste and reuse. Your
marketing lingo. Check you out.
Sorry.
No, that's great. Thank you for it.
ChatGPT, what's a swipe file?
Shut
Okay. So yeah, so you can use tone of voice. There are some fun tone of voices that people are sharing around. So feel free, as you know, to play around with those, but also once you've found something you like, copy paste it, keep it somewhere that you can grab hold of and play with. Right. So now we're going to have fun with another. Oh, no, we're not. I have another prompt for you guys to use to really show how it can be an assistant. It's called the procrastination prompt. I've used it on a number of people, and it's the same prompt, but it takes everyone on their personalized journey. But before we go down there, because that could be something I can leave you with, and you'll be able to see what it does for each of you, because we're running out of time. We've only got 20 minutes left on this. I'm going to ask James to step in and share what he's learned. What I can do, James, if I share the prompt with them before they're not going to listen to you. So I'll make sure that they listen to you.
Maybe
first.
do it afterwards.
And then what we learned from that prompt is the framework and the construction that we did of that prompt. And then you can think about different ways that you can rewrite the prompt with a similar structure for completely different purposes. So James, you should have full control of everything.
Yep, brilliant. Okay, well, I will share my screen with you now. Okay, so can just quickly check. You can see the screen there. Brilliant, excellent. Okay, so yeah, in this segment, basically what I want to talk about is how can you use ChatGPT without feeling like a cheat? Because look, I've seen, you've probably all seen them as well, the endless posts on LinkedIn of people saying, oh, I've used it to write a blog, I've used it to create my business plans, and I've even used it to code or write jokes. And yeah, the jokes are terrible that they put out, but we've seen people doing this. But how do you go about doing it without feeling like a fraud? If you just
don't post about it on LinkedIn.
Yeah, so that's probably a good point. But you know, as we've seen though, with what Bridget's been talking about in terms of prompts, it really does depend on how much information you give ChatGPT. If I just ask it to write me a blog about accounting, well, it does that, but it is damn boring, and it doesn't add any value to your company or to your audience. They get no value from it because it's not achieving an objective. It's all about making sure that you have, the right prompts, but you know, the way I would put it is, you know, what's the best way you could avoid feeling like a fraud with it? Not to use it, right? But at the end of the day, ChatGPT is like a superpower, and with that kind of power, you know, why wouldn't you want to kind of that to be able to get the best out, you know, get the best out of yourself? I know a lot of people talk about the fear that ChatGPT is going to replace people. And right now it looks like that. But if you play with this tool for long enough, you'll realize that there are a lot of limitations and flaws with it, that, you know, it can replace some of the functions, some of the things you do, but I don't believe it can replace people entirely right now. Okay. And it might change in the future, but at the moment, there's a lot of kind of things that it doesn't do very well. You know, there's a lot of ethical considerations that I saw in the chat that people were talking about. I think Stephen was saying about, you know, should it be regulated, and how will it affect? And there was questions about how it will affect your sort of like SEO and things like that as well. The thing is you might feel like a fraud, and in the back of your mind, you're thinking, all right, I got it to write my blog post for me. Am I going to get caught? And the short answer to that is quite possibly. So Google are at the moment working with OpenAI in order to actually detect ChatGPT content and then penalize your website for having pure AI content on there. And it makes complete sense, because like I showed you, if you just ask it to write a blog and you say, hey, write me a blog post about accounting, and stick in there some keywords, you may well trick the algorithm to get your page ranked, but the value of that content, it doesn't exist, right? So you have to keep that in mind. And the way I would say to look at avoiding this is to flip ChatGPT on its head. And actually, Bridget kind of already talked a little bit about this in her presentation, but you want to actually get ChatGPT to prompt you, okay? And the example that I used is creative writing. I really enjoy creative writing. I'm really into NFTs and stuff like that. And I'm working on some NFT projects at the moment where it's quite law heavy. And, you know, I enjoy writing, but it's also nice to be able to sound off my ideas with people. And I tried it out with ChatGPT to help me develop some characters. And so I'm going to give you an example from creative writing, and then I'll explain how you can kind of use this yourselves for other things, right? So I asked it to pretend that I said to it, sorry, that I'm going to pretend to be a character, and I want it to just ask me questions about my character. And at the end of it, it's going to tell me what the traits are that my character has, and then a little summary of the background for my character as well. And so I went through it. I gave it, this is really important for ChatGPT. It understands context. So you want to give it as much information at the beginning as possible so that it knows what it's referencing. And so here I kind of put in a little bit about the story itself, and then the character Constance, and a little bit of information about her. But I haven't figured out everything about this character, so I give it as much as I've got right now. Then it asks me questions, and as I answer, I am thinking through the questions and coming up with it as I go, right? Then at the end, when I say finish, I get this summary of the character along with the 5 character traits that represent her, right? Then you can take it one step further. So now I've got my characters, and let's say that I'm now working on the plot of my story, and I want to see, actually, I'm writing a scene. Does this actually make sense? Would she do this? So I ask it, I say, Constance is around rations and she steals it. Is that something that she would do? And ChatGPT, knowing the character and able to read the context, turns around and says, yes, it sounds like something she would do based on her background. She's resourceful. Her main goal is to survive, and explains there how it fits in with her character. And then I write here, right, she sees one of the elites beating a child. Does she join in? I know she wouldn't, but this is for the purpose of the example. And of course, ChatGPT says no, she wouldn't, and explains why she wouldn't do that. So you can really use the tool, especially from a creative perspective, to kind of sound off your ideas and build on them. And then you can take all that information out, and you're able to kind of help you with getting consistent characters, consistent dialogue. So it doesn't have to just be an idea like I've put here. You could even put in a paragraph from your novel. Now, you can't get ChatGPT to write your novel for you. First of all, there's limitations on how many tokens you can use per hour. So you would probably take just as long to get it to write your novel as it would to sit there and type it out, just because of the limits on there. And it wouldn't be very good, because it would be coming up with it from information that's already had before. Is part of its training model.
Just to explain what a token is,
Yes.
a token is what OpenAI, who is the company that has created ChatGPT, a token is the limitation in terms of the output. A token is something like 3/4 of a word on average. So basically, it's how many characters it outputs in a given time. And that's what that limitation is.
Yeah, I mean, if you wanted to get really technical about it, what it is that the model actually breaks down the text you put in into these tiny little tokens, these tiny sections. And a lot of the words actually you put in here actually don't even get passed by the model. First of all, it goes through a process where it will probably cut out about half of the words in what I've written and get it to the core value, which is why you can put in quite short prompts and it'll still kind of understand what you're saying. But yeah, so a token is, like Bridget said, it's a section of the word, and it's how it kind of figures out how it's going to respond to you. It breaks that down, and then that gets processed. So yeah, you can check, like I showed you there, you use it as a prompt for you to kind of check your work and the rest of it. And so I guess the thing is, how could you guys use this? Say you're doing marketing. Bridget gave the great example of tone of voice. And like she said, one of the things you can do is you can actually give it information about your tone of voice. As you can see there, like I was saying, context is super important. So you want to make sure it's got all of the information it needs. You see there, I've put in there the tone of voice for Bitpanda custody. And I then ask, does the following copy meet the guidance above, and point out where it doesn't. And this is my tweet, which I'm never going to send. Yo, dudes, you need to get crypto custody right now, because you may lose everything you ever owned if you don't. Don't miss out on the wicked custody offered by Bitpanda custody. And of course, that is my sneaky plug for today's presentation. But
Disagree, Jason. I disagree, James. I think that's an amazing tweet, to be honest.
I think, yeah, actually, I think it does. It has a really good effect there, doesn't it? But as you can see, it does come back to me. It says, hey, look, it doesn't meet the guidance above. The use of slang and the urgent and fear-based language does not align with the tone of being balanced and calm towards the industry. Additionally, the copy contains explicit investment advice, which is not in line with guidance to not recommend assets to customers or audience. So you can see there, if you get your prompts right, you can really kind of use it to your advantage. And you know what? I can go back to the drawing board. I can write a new tweet, put it in there, or I can give it some prompts like, okay, well, I need to say this. How can I do it in the tone of voice that I want? And it will give me some ideas. I don't feel like a cheat now, because I haven't actually got it to just do everything for me. And at the same time, I don't get told off by the CEO because I stuck a tweet out that said, yo, dudes. And I guess really for me, oh, sorry, Bridget.
No, carry on.
Yep. For me, the points I'd like to make as sort of the takeaways from this is, look, ChatGPT is a tool, all right? And it really depends on how you use it is what you get out of it, as Bridget's already told you. And the other thing as well is it can be biased. It has its limits. It's based on information that it has up until 2021. And then on top of that, it's also been programmed by people, and those people have a bias, and that bias does come out. You can test it out yourselves. I tried Stephen's example. It wasn't a very balanced response that I got, because it's using information that it's got from the internet, and then it's been fine-tuned by developers, and everybody has a bias, whether they want it to come out or not. it can impact how the model behaves, right? Also, sources are inaccurate. The amount of times I've said to it, hey, can you tell me about this information and please provide a source, and I've clicked the link and it's a 404. Happens every time almost. Be really, really careful with that. The way I would use it is to bounce ideas off it. I would say, hey, look, I've got this idea. What are the things I need to think about? And get it to kind of give you a list of things that you need to then work through, right? It's all about leveraging the strength of the model, but also, you know, relying on your human intelligence and maybe having other people from your team as well have input too. Always fact check. Like I said, the sources are inaccurate, and sometimes it can say things that aren't even true as well. And remember, this is a beta, right? Access isn't guaranteed. They could turn it off at any point they want. So look, I know people are like, oh, ChatGPT is going to take over. We're going to end up not being able to do, we'll get fired because we won't be able to do this. Well, tomorrow ChatGPT could be taken down. There could be legislation to end its access to the public, or, you know, it could just be at full capacity and you don't want to pay £45 a month for it. Use it to prompt you is my sort of takeaway for it. Anyway, guys, I hope that was helpful.
Thank you so much, James. That was really helpful. Does anyone have a question? I'll limit it to one question because we just don't have enough time for everything. Anyone have one question for James that they're burning to ask? Okay, no, perfect. So James, thank you very much. Well, I just want to build on that. And I love the fact that you and I sort of use it in some similar ways, but you come from it from a different angle. Yeah. So this is meant to be, how do we use it for productivity? Okay, so James was able to show to you that they put in the branding guidelines, they put in the style. Then he said, I've composed this piece of content. Does it fit within those branding guidelines? And that was great. But imagine if you can set all of that up for team members to come through. So you don't have to personally read through it. All of that quality, well, a lot of that quality control has been done by ChatGPT, your assistant, to be able to walk your team members through what they need to do. ChatGPT knows what the guidelines are. They can test their output before they bring it to you. So it's not just about how it can help you in your personal life, in your work life, but also start thinking about how you can create ways that it can start to help you as you delegate. So with that in mind, we've got 6 minutes left. Hands up who has a hard stop at 11, hands up who can go on for a bit longer. Who can go on for a bit longer, basically? A few of us. Okay, so I'll make sure that anyone who leaves, perfect, who has to leave, I'm going to follow up. We're going to have the workshop guide and this is recording. But I think if we've got enough people who want to carry on, it'd be quite good to be able to do that. So I'm going to share with you the prompt that I was talking about on procrastination, okay? So for those of you who have the ability to, you have your ChatGPT open right now, and it's working for you, you can copy and paste this, swipe this prompt, put it into your ChatGPT, and then let me know what happens. So if it's working properly, it will ask you one question at a time. If it's a little bit busy, it'll ask you all of the questions at once. Just FYI. Now, I'm not going to ask you to go through this whilst we're on this call. Some of you will, and that's absolutely fine. And then you can share your results. But here's where I'm going to say differently to James, right? A lot of people I hear from say it remembers context, so give it lots of information. But sometimes you don't want to do that, right? We're looking at being as productive as possible. So I understand in James's creative character that the more ChatGPT understands the character, the more that he can ask would they or wouldn't they do things. But I did this procrastination prompt with a few people. And here's what I found, and Monica can attest to this. Okay, so Monica is very self-aware, and she gave it huge reams of answers to each question. And what she found was that the prompt gave back to her just what she had said in her own words, all right, which isn't overly helpful. It's a bit like going back to the car question. Can you help me buy a car? Yes, here's all the research, right? We want it to do all of it for us. We want it to do the heavy lifting. So when you play with this prompt, be as brief as you possibly can with your responses. Like 2 or 3 words where you can. And I think this also goes back to James's point, is you don't always have to put in a lot of information and it still understands the context of what you're doing. So as you use it, you'll understand when giving it all the context is important and when it isn't. Does that make sense? So this has been used for, I used it on myself. I had a proposal to get out and I had invoices to raise, and it kind of just, particularly with the proposal, it'll help you, give you an outline and break it all down. I was on with somebody yesterday, and they have EU grants that they put proposals for. They're used to doing it. So I said, okay, what's your current EU proposal grant that you're doing? And within 1 sentence, 2 sentences, it started to write it for her. And she said, that's crazy, because this is literally what we've got in our proposal that's taken them days to get together. So yeah, we don't have to put in all of the information to get all of the output. Bye, Naomi. I'll speak to you later, Naomi. Thanks for joining. Now, what I want you to understand is the framework that James used for his creative writing is the same framework that I have used for this. And so if you can do it for creative writing, if you can do it for procrastination, imagine all the other ways you can do it for. One of them is customer service. You can integrate a chatbot on your website that's programmed like this that will walk your customers through to be able to fix their problem. And then if they're happy with that, great. If they're not, it'll send them to a human or whatever the next one is that you're able to do. So it really is about the different ways that we can think of the application that we're limited by. So for all of you that have to drop off, thank you very much. We'll continue for those who are able to hold on.
Bridget, while people are doing that, then one of the things I have done is get ChatGPT to write something, then take that text and put it into another AI tool, such as DID. Okay. And DID will create a video of somebody narrating your text. Yes. And you can choose different voices and all that kind of thing. So that's quite neat.
Exactly. This is barely scratching the surface of one tool. There are so many other tools that we can integrate it with as well. And I think the other thing is that is really important is understanding that. So for me, what I want to be able to do when we finish all of this is I want to get a group of us together where we're all focused in Web3. And we're all looking to look at the different ways that we can use ChatGPT, because for me, and these AI models, because for me, it's yes, you can use it personally. We've sort of looked a lot at that, of how you can use it personally, both in your professional life and in your personal life. Now we're beginning to think about actually, how can I use this to be able to help delegate and assist with team members? So how can we build things that we can help with our team, not just with ourselves? And the real power is also saying, okay, that's great for internal use, but how do I take the opportunities of the assistant and capabilities of ChatGPT to be fun, to be playful, to be whatever it might be, to customer service, and actually embed that? So we haven't touched on APIs. How you play around with this, and you've got all of these manual programs that you do, but how do you actually take that and build it into the products and services that you're doing? And so it would be great, rather than, I mean, the countless hours I've done and I'm sharing with you, if we can learn together in a focused group, I think that would be fantastic. And then we can bring in and have all the expertise that we need to really accelerate the journey on that. So if people are interested in that, do let me know. And I'll let you know what's involved to make sure. I'm limiting it to 150 people in the group. And the reason behind that is because 150 is around the number where everyone knows everybody else and what they can do. If you get bigger than that, you'll need to come via somebody to say, who do we know who does X, Y, and Z? But within 150, everyone can sort of go to everyone and know exactly what expertise they have. From that, and half of us, Christine, I'll come to you in a moment, half of us, when we first started this poll, are entrepreneurs. I know that there were going to be business ideas that you can implement into your own business that you'll be able to get from this group, and then we'll show you or connect you with the people so you can then, if you don't have the talent inside your organization, to do that. But I know for sure there are going to be new business ideas that come out then I'm sure that we'll want to, within us, different people will attach themselves and want to build out those ideas. So we can also make sure that we become an incubator and a venture studio to be able to allow the synergy of those ideas to come about, and then to be able to test them and bring them to market where they're valid. So that's what I'm looking at doing, is creating a group of like-minded people who share that vision and want to be a part of it. So if you have interest, then just by show of hands, that would be really cool. And excellent, thank you very much. And so I can move forward on that. Christina, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I'm really interested in your point about how ChatGPT can be used in the Web3 and the metaverse environment in general. And I think one of the major trends that already start to emerge is a lot of people are building AI like driven avatar. So basically the whole avatar is not having a human being behind it to interacting within the virtual environment, but it's actually something similar like ChatGPT. So I was thinking, once that like technology is a little bit more matured, a really interesting trend could be a large part of the metaverse environment is a human combined with AI assistants, avatars coming hand in hand to explore the virtual space, doing all things from medical trainings or things like, assisted financial engagement within the virtual space. And maybe we can delegate our AI assistant using something similar to the ChatGPT to ensure the kind of privacy and data management. So it doesn't necessarily have to be shared with the platform, and we can set up like mechanisms using AI to safeguarding online safeties and ensure there is going to be a much safer and also responsible and prosperous like Web3 and metaverse economy. I think there are companies already start to look into that space. So perhaps that's an area we can all looking together to explore. And I personally believe that's going to have exponential growth in the years to come. Yeah.
I wouldn't disagree with that at all. And education, it's so fun. Education was outdated before ChatGPT was launched onto the world. And now I said to my son, he's 18, he's doing his A-levels. He's doing computer science, he's doing graphics and maths. The point of me telling you his subject areas is he's like, it's not helping me at all with all of the pieces of art that he's creating. So he had to create an armchair, and then he had to describe why he created the armchair and what is, the innovation behind it in terms of what was it representing. And it wasn't representing anything useful. It's not a chair that's designed for comfort. It's not a chair that's designed for anything practical. And he couldn't get ChatGPT to help him with this at all, because this was something that he'd been down a journey for, the creativity, the uniqueness of what he was creating. But when it comes to computer science, he's like, oh, Mum, this is brilliant. I said, well, as long as you're making sure that it's helping you with what you're doing, not replacing what you're doing, and you're not learning to code. So he said, every single adult has told me I'm not allowed to use it. And I said, well, I'm sorry, darling, I feel 100% the other way. If you don't learn how to harness this, you will be made redundant in the future. So now that the assistant knows way more than the teachers do, because it just has a brain capacity in a different way than humans do, it's going to be very interesting to see how education is going to be disrupted.
It's kind of like that whole Matrix thing. There is no spoon.
Go on.
The armchair, and your analogy of that was kind of like trying to catch up with it. And I went, that's a very difficult thing to even answer for a normal person, let alone someone in their A-levels. So it's an interesting way. Sorry, kind of going a bit of a side right there, but it's I agree with the premise. It's not to replace stuff; it's to inspiring and use creativity to your advantage.
So some of the things that I just want to make sure that we've captured in terms of the practical side of this, because it's productivity workshop that we've got, is one, when you're using ChatGPT, it might crash and you'll lose some of what you've already outputted that has been good. So please do copy and paste as you go along. 2, with this particular procrastination framework that I gave you, it crashed for me halfway through. So also, as it's asking you these questions, copy and paste the answers so that when you restart it and go again, you can just copy and paste those to go in. Organize a folder and a file based on the subject matter and prompts that you really like, but also the output of stuff that you'll want to reuse, like your tone of voice. And then start thinking about ways that you can use it to dedicate to your teams. Now, obviously, it's fine to delegate it to the team, assuming that they have access to it, that the capacity is fine. We know all of those are issues right now. We know all of those are problems. So bear in mind, they might be on a wait list to get in. They might not be able to access it. And when they do access it, they might not be able to, as in they have an account and they can get in, but it's too busy to do very much. So yes, we have a lot of problems, but I think it's absolutely stunning in terms of how we can change our productivity. Then there are ways to be inspired, not just by what I've looked at. What I found most of is how marketers use this tool. And of course they would, because one, it's brilliant for marketing, but also marketers will do what marketers do. They would market the shit out of this, right? Coders, I imagine, are having enormous amounts of benefit and fun from this, but they're different creatures, so they're just learning how to do this themselves and keeping it to themselves. If you want to be inspired by different ways that people are using it, then I would recommend that you follow. One is a guy on Twitter, and it's @DataChaz. And then Tari Singh on LinkedIn is another one. So Tari Singh on LinkedIn also shared about those businesses who have already moved fast, and they have created an API with ChatGPT. So on the promotion of this session, I also said you'll learn how to transcribe YouTube videos and be able to take that content. So one of the, and it was a post from Tari Singh, he said that the 10 best use cases that he'd seen was shared in there. So I'm going to put that into the chat now for you all. He shared these 10 use cases, and this is where I was able to play with taking a YouTube video using the Chrome plugin. So there we go. Those are the 10 that he recommended. This post is a couple of weeks old, from who knows how many there are now. I'm going to share my screen with you so that you can see what I did. There is the widget is the YouTube summary with ChatGPT. It's literally just, for me, a Chrome plugin. So I use Chrome. I've added that. And then what happens is when you're on a video, you'll see this here on the side, transcript and summary. You open it up. You copy the transcript. It's just here. And then I would drop it into a document. It's only a 2-minute clip, that's why. So it's taken all of the transcript. You can do it for something that is an hour and a half long. You know, sometimes you get big lectures. What I did it on is, for anyone who is at Zebu Live, yeah, for anyone who is at Zebu Live, then we had Steve Bartlett closed down the conference, and he came on and he spoke for, I don't know, maybe his keynote or his, it was fireside chat was half an hour, 45 minutes, but they actually stayed on stage for a lot longer, and they took questions from the audience. So I was able to use this tool, the plugin, this one, to, on the video, transcribe it for me, which I then put into a document. And then I took section by section, because if you have too many words, ChatGPT will say, I'm sorry, that's too much. So you have to break it down into segments. So I broke it down into segments, and I said, ChatGPT, please give me the key takeaways from each section. And now I've been able to create 40 key takeaways from the Steve Bartlett interview, keynote fireside chat that he had with Zebu Live, which is great because it's taken me this long to listen to it. And now I can use these tools to take the key takeaways out at the same time that they've launched a 100 million fund for underrepresented founders in Web3, which is just up our street. So I'm going to take these 40 pieces of key takeaways, I'm going to put them into 3 posts where I can tag him in and also share what we're doing. And hopefully that will help me get in front of them to be able to have a conversation about getting them as part of our VC partners. So that was another way that we can use ChatGPT. And as I said, I've shared the other apps that are in there that you can implement. I appreciate you for staying on. Let me know how you want to follow up. What do you want going forward? I'll talk more about that exclusive group of 150 people that we want to build to be able to take all of this forward. And then if you want a copy of the download, then I'll also make sure that you have opportunity for that.
It's really, really good to organize this, Bridget. Really well done.
Thank you very much. Thank you everyone else for showing up, and
Fantastic.
we look forward to doing more together.
Thanks, guys. I'll see you all soon.